I want to start off specifically with what's going on with COVID. Obviously, most people know your company because of ELIQUIS, that blood thinner. But that blood thinner, of course, got a lot of attention when it appeared that a lot of hospitals were using blood thinners to treat COVID patients. We know that there are at least a couple of trials out there right now using ELIQUIS. Where do we stand right now in that research?
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to spend some time with you. ELIQUIS is an important medicine, and there are trials ongoing with ELIQUIS to test the efficacy in preventing some of the thrombotic effects that you were mentioning in patients with COVID. So those trials with ELIQUIS and other drugs from Bristol Squibb are continuing. I think it's just an example of the great progress that our industry has made through unprecedented collaboration. In just over 6 months, we are seeing the development of multiple therapeutics, antibodies, and recently we've seen great news for vaccines. So the speed at which we're moving is really unprecedented, and many trials are ongoing, including the ones with ELIQUIS.
Milken Institute saying there's no less than 40 COVID-19 vaccines currently in clinical testing as we stand. Doctor, your perspective, I want to go back to some of your expertise as Chief Operating Officer of Bristol Squibb, when you're in charge, of course, of global manufacturing, global supply. When you think of the very complex negotiation we're going to go through in terms of getting vaccines to people, how confident are you that we can get it out to the masses and swiftly?
Well, we're seeing an unprecedented effort of cooperation between different companies with governments and other institutions like the Gates Foundation, for example, and it is going from sharing clinical data so that clinical trials can accelerate to looking at manufacturing capacity to make sure that we will have enough capacity for the doses we need. And obviously, every company is working on developing their distribution strategy. So it's an unprecedented effort, which is proceeding at great speed. It's really based on the capabilities and the strength that our industry has. And I'm actually optimistic that while there are barriers and it will take time, the speed at which we're making progress right now makes me confident that we'll be able to successfully not only develop vaccines, but also, of course, most important, bring it to every person that can benefit from one.
Doctor, we've talked about ELIQUIS. Another one of your major drugs, Opdivo, is still dominating, and analysts have said that they like that. The flip side of that is those two drugs collectively are about 60% of some of that pharma revenue. Are you worried about concentration when generics come online, some of the pricing pressure from that?
Well, first, I would say I'm really pleased with the progress we've made this year as the new Bristol Squibb over the last 12 months. And the strength of our business actually is really in the diversification we have across oncology, hematology, immunoscience, and cardiovascular medicines. We've got rapidly growing businesses. We've launched 4 new medicines this year, just closed the acquisition of MyoKardia, really important in cardiovasculars. So renewing our portfolio is really what our industry does all the time. Given the strength of our pipeline, the launch of new medicines, I'm actually really confident in our future in the short and the long term. We're a growth company, and we're very well positioned for the future.
You are a growth company. Part of that growth, of course, was that monster deal that you pulled off last year with Celgene. There are a lot of people looking at that deal. They're wondering how it's contributing or maybe not contributing to that growth. And they're also curious, Giovanni, here, as to what other sort of M&A ambitions you might have.
Well, first of all, let me say I'm really pleased with the integration between Bristol Squibb and Celgene. The company's in a really strong position. The performance of the business has been strong this year. We've launched 4 medicines, and the strength of execution really speaks to the value of the acquisition, but also the ability that our teams have had to continue to perform strongly. I look at business development and bringing external innovation as part of our strategy. We are an innovation company. We are at the center of ecosystems of innovation in the US and around the world. This year, we've done multiple deals. As we were working and integrating Celgene, we've acquired a company called Forbius. As I mentioned, just this week, we closed on the acquisition of MyoKardia. It's really the combination of internal and external innovation that has been the strength of Bristol Squibb, and I think that's going to be our strategy going forward.
Doctor, we only have 1 minute left, but I'm very interested in the lymphoma cell therapy that you're developing, in particular the FDA decision on that. Are you hopeful that the Texas unit laboratory will be able to be inspected, even if it's just virtually, to get that through?
First of all, I'm really confident in the technology and Lysocell as a potentially really important new medicine. The data is very compelling, and we're very committed to bringing it to market as soon as possible because it's important for patients. We're working very actively with the FDA and exploring really potential for the inspection. There's clearly an issue with the pandemic and the ability to travel, but I'm really confident that we have an opportunity to continue to advance our dialogue. We're committed to bringing Lysocell to patients. It's a really important medicine, and it's an important part of our strategy.